So way too long ago, I made a video that was almost a year late about a demo I said was such a high priority that I recommended catching a charge for criminal neglect of either animals or the elderly to sit down and play it all the way through immediately. The demo being the prologue chapter to a first-person shooter by the name of Ultrakill, which is brought to us by RC Hakita Patala, hope I said that right, by the way of New Blood Productions. I also may or may not have let some statements out about how Ultrakill has the potential to be the best first-person shooter of all time. Somewhere in between now and the whole almost year ago it took me to make that almost year late video because apparently it's really hard to sit and talk into a microphone. Ultrakill released for early access for $20 and the prologue chapter and the whole first act included in September of 2020. As soon as it came out, I actually drove to the bank to transfer some money to buy it before payday. Since then, I've put 125 hours into it. 125 hours into the first third of a game, which is collective to about the amount of time I've spent on Nier over the course of the 5 times I've played through it, and I would like to explain to you exactly why. In my review of the demo, I talked on the mechanics of the game for a bit, but I'm going to assume that rightfully you haven't seen that video, so let me do a quick recap. You're a robot who's found the entrance to the underworld and intends to work its way through. You have a selection of weapons, which at the time of writing are as follows: a pistol, a shotgun, a nail gun, a railgun, a fist that parries things, and a fist that pushes things back. Each weapon has up to 4 alternative firing modes. The pistol comes stock with a charge shot, but you can unlock a firing mode where you flip a coin, and if you can hit it with the shot, it'll ricochet into an enemy, which is usually a one-hit kill. The shotgun comes with a similar charge shot that will explode a group of weaker enemies, and a secondary fire that loads multiple shells and fires them all at once. This is almost exclusively used as a rocket jump. The nail gun comes stock with a special fire that hits an enemy with a magnetic anchor and guides all of the nails directly into them, and an unlockable firing mode that fires all the ammo out of the barrels rapidly, but the barrels need to recharge after 2 uses. This is good for killing certain enemies, like the malicious faces or the Cerberus monsters. The new railgun that comes with the early access comes stock with a sharp penetrating shot with the options to unlock a shot that sticks to enemies and drains health over time, as well as the same Dr. Octagonopus laser that the malicious face casts. Using these weapons, as well as a jump, a dash, a ground pound, and a parry mechanic, you are set to move through the different layers of the underworld that come with the first act, which are the first 3 layers: Limbo, Lust, and Gluttony. That combined with the prologue that came with the demo, aka the River Styx, makes now for a total of 14 main levels and officially 3 secret levels and 3 secret bosses. The only difficulty settings that were available in the early access at first were both of the normal difficulty settings, Standard and Violent. The easy difficulty settings have also now been unlocked. I've been playing on Violent because I need the pain to get off when it comes to FPS games at this point in my life. Ultrakill has 2 unique selling points as an independently made first-person shooter. Number 1 being the PS1 specific art style with pixelated 3D graphics and texture warping for good measure. And 2, there's a Devil May Cry style combo counter that ranks your combat performance on a scale between D through U. U standing for Ultrakill, obviously. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just kill a lot of enemies quickly using your wide range of abilities and weapons in a fancy way to add up your score counter. Now on top of that, you get graded at the end of each level between a D grade and a P grade, P being perfect. In order to get a perfect score on a level, you need to get S rankings in all 3 categories the game grades you on for the level: speed, kills, and style. So in order to get a P ranking, you need to kill every enemy in the level, including the hidden boss encounters, quickly and look really good while doing it. There's a level here where you have to collect 2 different skull keys around this massive labyrinth of a map, kill every enemy, some of which were bosses in other levels, complete a hidden boss encounter, then go beat the main level boss that you need to get past just in order to get to the exit, all in under 8 minutes. Obviously without dying in order if you want to get that P rank on the level, so dedicated players will be playing these levels over and over and over again. Every level also has a bonus challenge that can be completed. These range from killing enemies in a certain way, to dashing for a certain length of time, to finding a hidden challenge, to beating the level in under a certain amount of time, to not touching any of the water in a level, all kinds of stuff like that. Plus there are secrets hidden in every level, represented by squares underneath each level in the level selection. I said level too many times in that sentence. They actually appear in what order they are in the level. So say for example there's 5 secrets in a level, and on your first playthrough you find 2 really close to the beginning of the level and then 1 right at the very end. Then the first 2 squares would be filled in as well as the last one, so you would have a vague idea as to what parts of the level the other secrets would be in. So after you've got a P rank, all secrets found, all challenges completed, and all the secret levels of each layer completed, the layer will light up gold and you'll be given a P rank for the entire layer. This is no easy task beyond the prologue chapter. And in that 125 hours I spent playing this masterpiece, I've managed to get a P rank for the prologue chapter and the first layer. I've completed all challenges except for 1 and have almost all the secrets. Those precious and probing P rankings will just niggle at the back of my mind, calling me back to the computer like the people of Innsmouth I looked this up and I forgot how to say it. We're just going to say Devil's Ring. To keep me up late at night just practicing my run for that level or this level just one more time. See, I can count on less than 10 fingers on how many games I've put that much time into. The games are thus: Doom 3, Doom 1993, Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, World of Warcraft, Team Fortress 2, Diablo 2, Wind Waker, and the aforementioned Nier Automata. All of which, besides WoW obviously, took me years to dump that many hours into. With Ultrakill, I did it in about 2 months. Now that may seem easy to some people out there, but my video game time is limited, and I genuinely sacrificed a lot of sleep to stay up and play this thing. I probably went 2 whole weeks on 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night because I was glued to that PC until I was falling asleep sitting up. The reason being is simple. This game has a perfect gameplay loop, the levels are crafted and designed beautifully, and in my opinion are comparable to John Romero's levels in Knee Deep in the Dead. It's sonically, kinesthetically, and visually stimulating to play, and has what I refer to as the Encyclopedia Dramatica effect. You can spend a whole day on it and it'll feel like 5 minutes. Referring to the 0809 Encyclopedia Dramatica, of course. Point being is I'm not a 100% completionist kind of person, and moreover, I'll stop playing anything once it starts to bore me. This game has not only gotten 125 hours out of me up to the time of writing, but I still intend to keep going until I have the P rank on everything, including the next 2 chapters when they come out. Since I intend to keep making new videos as the new parts are released, eventually culminating in a full review once the finished product is out, I would like to focus on 2 things moving forward now that the basics of the game have been established. Number 1 is that I'm going to be reviewing the different layers individually as a whole and giving them a ranking between D and P. Once the entire game is out, I intend to do a review where I break down every level piece by piece, but for now I'm going to keep things vague so I don't spoil anything for anyone who's still considering investing in it now. Second, I'm going to keep commenting on whether or not Ultrakill is still in the running for the best FPS I've ever played while making these videos, which I feel also requires some context. I play a lot of first-person shooters. A lot. When I was coming of age back in about 2007, my dad gave me an old 2004 HP desktop he had bought when it was new and he no longer needed because he had switched up to a laptop. As a birthday gift that year, he had an NVIDIA 6200 GPU and a 2.4 GHz wireless card installed in the desktop and gave it to me so I could play World of Warcraft. As well as playing WoW, I got really into old PC games that I could easily acquire and run on that hardware, most of which were FPSs from the mid-90s to the mid-2000s. It could handle the first Witcher game fine, but not Crysis or Jericho or Fear 2 in any stable manner, just as a reference point. I quickly found out 2 things. 1, old 90s FPS games were really easy to torrent, and 2, Goodwill was a great place to go, but I digress. I played a lot of old games to pass the time, and many of them were FPSs. Mostly bad, but I played all the good ones and most of the classics, and after 14 years of frequent FPS gaming, I take it the way my old man takes his eggs. Hard. No runny stuff at all. Long story short, this led to a day in my life where I got my hands on a disc copy of the original DOS version of the game Blood, which I acquired through what A.D. Skinner would refer to as unofficial channels, and I fell in love with it. Blood is the epitome of not only the 90s FPS, but what a fun, lighthearted FPS should be. Fast-paced, a unique aesthetic, amazing sound design, unique and well-designed levels, an amazing soundtrack, and a 1900s Catholic school nun's approach to disciplining the player for mistakes. And I love it. I love it to this day. I still sometimes play it in DOSBox just to relive those days of my youth, even though I own the superior Blood Fresh Supply remake. In the demo video, I mentioned the only 2 FPS games I held in the running for best of all time were Blood and Doom Eternal, but I hadn't decided at the time which one I liked more. Well, I recently replayed through both Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal on Nightmare mode, and I'm fully prepared to say I think that Blood stands as the best FPS I've ever played. However, I will stand by the idea that Ultrakill still has the potential to usurp it, but I won't make a final decision until I can compare both finished products together, and also try Ultrakill on the higher difficulty settings. So basically, I'm going to focus these brief reviews over the next 2 chapters over those 2 ideas. How do I rank each layer individually, and does it still hold its own against Blood? Starting with the prologue chapter, I'm going to slap that bad boy with an S rank, a wonderfully designed intro to the game that teaches you everything you need to know and giving you plenty to come back to and find later on once you unlock other weapons and get a feel for the game. It goes for that machine-like aesthetic that feels very reminiscent of Quake 2 in a way, but with the feeling and design being much closer to the original Quake. There are a lot of environmental traps you can use on your enemies and a lot of hidden ways to get around the levels quickly. The industrial feel has lots of references to crushing and grinding, such as a hallway that looks like the set of that hallway in Event Horizon, or lots of crushers that are used to pound meat into pulverized mush. It does an amazing job giving you just the right amount of content and getting you used to what'll be expected of you in later chapters to come. The only reason I give this layer an S rank instead of a P rank is because the bonus mission is definitely a little bit out of place, and while it doesn't damper the experience in any way, I find it very strange that it was included here. chapter. Find it and you'll see what I mean. Layer 1 is Limbo, which up to this point is my favorite chapter so far. Beautiful landscapes with big cathedrals, carpeted hallways, lava pits, suspicious looking fountains, wink wink, and a new type of enemy with a flamethrower, a new floating robot enemy, and a really relaxed music track that juxtapositions well against the constant spraying of blood. The Limbo layer has 3 full levels and 1 boss level at the end that I consider to be the first real boss in the game. That's really the point where it's going to require motivation to continue going forward. That's not the only boss in the chapter, however. There's one other main boss and 2 hidden bosses, one of which is an absolutely amazing bit. No spoilers, but let's just say that I fangirled out a bit when I found it. There are 4 buttons to find and press throughout each chapter, 1 in each level, that unlock something sweet if you can find them. Plus, the secret level in this chapter is legitimately cool and I had a fun time messing with it. All in all, I'd say Limbo earns itself a perfect P rank. Afterwards, we head on to Layer 2, Lust. In all honesty, out of what we have so far, the Lust layer is probably my least favorite. That doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form that it's bad or even weak. Lust consists of these bright cityscapes and bright lights with a looming demon all the way in the background. There are some really cool levels here though, especially the 3rd level of this chapter. This level introduces a new enemy type and has a really cool gimmick that I personally had a lot of fun maneuvering around and replaying over and over and over again. This is where the game really starts to crank up the difficulty, especially when it comes to getting those P rankings. Getting through all these levels quickly, killing every enemy, doing it stylishly and all in one life is extremely challenging, and prepare to be practicing them over and over again. Like I said, probably my least favorite chapter thus far, but it's mostly because it's held up against the prologue and the first chapter. The level design here is still top notch and the introduction of the railgun is sweet, but I found myself getting burnt out a bit when it came to completing all the challenges, secrets, and P rankings more so than the other chapters, but still an absolute blast to play. Give this one a solid A ranking. Which brings us to Layer 3, Gluttony. This is an interesting chapter in the game because it only consists of 2 levels, the second being the final boss for all of Act 1. Despite being about half the length of the other chapters we have so far, it really makes up for it by creating an extremely unsettling aesthetic that's reminiscent of the House of Horrors level from Blood, but cranked up to the extreme, and throwing you into the hardest level followed by the hardest boss fight thus far. The final boss of Act 1 is ball-bustingly hard, especially since they've updated and changed some of the weapons, but so satisfying to beat. I really love this layer. The first level is intense, claustrophobic, and gives off this aura of a furry-vor animation done by the way of the movie Cube. It's extremely interesting and a great wrap-up to Act 1. All in all, we just slapped this baby with an S rank. Beyond just the campaign, there's also a cyber grind mode that serves as a gauntlet where you can see how many rounds you can go on an alternating arena with increasing difficulty. I'd say more about this mode, but that's literally all it is, and I've messed around with it a few times, but most of the time I spend going through the levels trying to get those P ranks. So that's it for now. If I haven't gotten this point across yet, you should go and invest in this game as soon as possible. The price is right, and even if the developer were to drop it, God forbid, what's there is worth way more than the $20 price tag. That being said, I'll see you again after the release of Act 2. Later, Nick! Hey, so as I was finishing up this video, I booted up Ultrakill to get a couple more minutes of footage just to be safe, and there was a big update waiting for me, and it came with the first chapter of Act 2, which is Greed, and it's awesome. There's some new enemy types, some cool new additions to help, like crank up the intensity to a whole new level. Like, I don't want to get into it until I do the whole Act 2 review. I just needed to say it because my video was officially outdated before it even came out. So, yeah. By the way, nice going on that secret mission for sheer heart attack there. That's Act 1, Layer 2, Level 3. If you can find the entrance to the secret mission there, you should go check it out. Later, Nick!